everybody, my name is Amanda and today I have another IB video to share with you guys. So this is the third video of my IB exam prep video series sort of thing. I've done a video about the sciences and I've done a general video, so if you have not seen those yet, I strongly recommend watching those first. Because today we'll be talking about language and literature, and I took English A, language and literature, and I took Swedish A, literature, both in higher level. So I have experience with both the language and literature and the straight up literature courses, so I know a bit about both. So the first part of the video is going to be about the literature side of things, and the second half of the video is going to be about the language part. So that's just how it's going to be, and let's just jump into it. So I guess the single most important thing is know your texts. Duh. And by that I mean, of course, read them. That's the first thing you have to do. But there's so much more to knowing a text than just having read it. You have your secondary literature, you have your Shmoop, your SparkNotes, and even though you don't use those as your primary resources, they're still really good for revising the plot and that sort of thing, so I would recommend using them, just not as your primary tool for your analysis. So the first and biggest tip I have is to get together with your class and do a revision grid. And by this I mean that you do a Google document or the like with your entire class where you have all your 3 or 4 texts depending on what you do, and then you do your themes in the right margin and your texts in the upper margin, and then you just fill out a direct explicit comparison with all the themes that would come up in an exam or could come up in an exam. We did this for my English language literature and it was so helpful, so I even carried it on to university and I made a revision grid for my entire comparative literature class, so we all worked on it together. It was so helpful, and I don't know what I would have done without it, because you get input from so many people, and since everyone has different ideas, different views on things, it will all come together really nicely. You're not just stuck with your own ideas. Another really important thing is to look at past exam papers and identify the themes. And I know I've spoken about this in the previous 2 videos, and just like it is important in the sciences, it's equally important in language and literature, because they tend to ask for about the same thing. And they do format the questions similarly as well, so if you know how to approach old questions, you will immediately know how to approach the questions that come up on your own exam. So basically get together in groups and go through your old exam papers, discussing each question, how you would go about answering that question. Like, if you have this question, what would be important to bring up? What would you exclude? What would you have in your first paragraph? What would be your main argument? That sort of thing. And just throw ideas back and forth with your friends. And then another really important thing is to practice writing timed outlines, and that is so important that you plan your essays, and I will be doing an entire video about exam essay technique and that sort of thing, but it's so important to plan your essay. So just practice writing like 10-minute outlines, because you have old exam papers again. Just take those questions and then give yourself 10 minutes to write an outline, because practicing to write an entire essay is quite pointless, I think, but practicing your outlines is so important, because that's when you know if you know your text. If you see a question, you should just be able to like bam 3 points to bring up in your essay, in your outline. The next thing then to practice is your introductions and your conclusions, and especially your introductions. That's the first thing that the examiner is going to write, and there's so much power in that subconscious first encounter with your essay. If you have a really strong introduction, they will be looking at your essay in a more favorable light throughout. So you have to catch their attention already in the introduction, and just practice writing them timed as well is really helpful. If applicable, or if possible, decide and see if you can narrow down what texts you would like to work with. Don't restrict your options too much, but be selective and honest with yourself. Like, will I be able to write something good about this text? If the answer is no, don't revise it. Just focus on 3 or 2 texts that you'll be able to do something really nicely with, instead of going through a text that you're struggling with, that you're really not enjoying. So be selective with your texts and study smart and efficiently. Then coming back to the language aspects of literature and language, I would say again old papers is really important, and you have your paper 1 that is the main thing you have to focus about for language. So doing old exam papers is really important, just identifying the themes of the paper. Just go through the paper looking for your stylistic features, your camera angles, your texts, your fonts, your placements, that sort of thing. So practice doing that over again and comparing different texts and finding similar themes between them. Just make sure that you know whether you're supposed to do a comparison or not, because if you're doing a comparison, obviously you have to approach it in a slightly different way, and just being aware of that when you are practicing it will be really important. And then it's really important that you know your jargon, that you know the words associated with different types of texts. So that's really important when you do revision, that you really get your vocabulary up to point with all the visual elements of a visual text, because there's a whole criteria that is about your own writing. So make sure that your writing is really strong by enforcing it with these jargon words that are specific to each text type, without overdoing it, of course. And the main thing I have to say about the exam for the language part is breathe, because it's probably gonna be the first exam or one of the first exams you do, and it's scary, and you'll get this paper in front of you and your mind might go blank. That's pretty much what happened to me, and that's when you have to go back to the revision you've done and tell yourself, you know this, just breathe through it, and then start looking for your stylistic features, identifying what type of text is this. Just having practiced it systematically before will help your mind really snap back into it when you're in the exam if you were to blank. Just having done it multiple times will help you in an actual exam situation. So that was the basic tips I had for English, language and literature, or language and literature in general. In essence, if you know your texts, if you have discussed them with friends and you know how to approach them from different angles and that sort of thing, you'll do just fine. And it's not as bad as you think it'll be, I promise. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. I would love to help you out as much as possible. And if you found this video any helpful at all, give it a big thumbs up, because then I know that I'm doing the right thing. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to subscribe, and I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye.